Hi everyone, this is Karen.
Hello everybody, I'm Shane.
Today we're looking at part 2 of
How much do you really know about tea?
I think I know a lot.
Do you?
And the vocabulary words are costly.
Costly.
Sam and Diane decided against having a costly wedding.
Smart. Noble.
Noble.
In the Middle Ages, knights were members of the noble class.
Afford.
Afford.
Most young people cannot afford to buy a house.
True. Access.
Access.
One of the new government's goals is to increase access to healthcare.
Flavor.
Flavor.
The soup that your grandma made is full of flavor.
My grandma is the best.
I love it.
She also makes a great cup of tea.
Does she now?
That's right.
That's pretty awesome.
And she has really cool, like very old-fashioned tea set.
Okay.
Like with the really cute
Fancy
design.
ones.
Like very fancy, and they're very delicate. I think that's something they talked about in this article, right?
That's right. Well, I think a long time ago, people didn't really have like the really nice, sturdy tea sets, right?
Right.
So, do you know what they did? Because if you pour the tea, usually it's boiling hot.
Right.
And usually these tea sets will break.
Yeah, if your teacup is like really thin or it's not made of very good material, it's going to just break.
So, do you know what they did back then?
I do, because I read the article. They would add milk to it to cool it down.
So, that's how you get milk tea. I never knew that. I thought it's just for the flavor.
My grandma always puts milk in her tea as well. She makes this really great rose tea. Have you ever had rose tea before?
Maybe.
It's so good.
Okay,
like rose milk tea.
Sounds really, really good. But I love milk tea. I have milk tea from the breakfast shop every single morning.
Wow. Okay, I guess you really are a big fan of tea.
I
How
am.
about you guys?
Tell us.
Let's learn more.
How much do you really know about tea?
3. When did tea become widely popular in Britain? A. In the 15th century. B. In the 16th century. C. In the 17th century. D. In the 18th century. Tea came to England from China in the 17th century, but it was so costly that only noble people could afford it. It wasn't until the first tea shop opened in 1717 that common people got access to the drink. By the middle of the 18th century, nearly everyone in England was consuming tea.
All right, welcome back to How Much Do You Really Know About Tea? I'm Kim.
I'm Mike.
And today we're learning even more about tea.
Oh boy, and we don't know very much, do we?
No, we don't, but
No.
we're willing to learn, so
Yeah,
it's okay.
we asked 2 questions yesterday and we both got them wrong.
Yeah, let's see how well we can do today. So,
All right.
are you ready for our third question?
Question number 3, hit me.
Okay, when did tea become widely popular in Britain? A. In the 15th century, so this would be the 1400s. B. In the 16th century. C. In the 17th century. Or D. In the 18th century.
Wow, that's a tough question. So the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1600s, or the 1700s. Of course, when you do the century, it's always kind of a number after the actual date. Well, I think that the 15th century, that's the 1400s. They only went to America. Right, they were only kind of traveling around the world, and so I think that's too early. 16th, that's the 1500s. I know coffee was popular around that time. I don't know. It's tough. I don't think D is too late. A is too early. B and C. I would
B
go
and C.
with C. B, I'm saying. I don't know.
Pick one.
Okay, B.
No, actually.
Dang, all right.
Sorry, what is the answer?
The answer is tea came to England from China in the 17th century. So maybe it was coffee in the 15th century and then tea. So it came to England from China in the 17th century. But it was so costly that only noble people could afford it. Wow.
That's pretty different from today, where you can go to any 7-Eleven, get a cup of tea like instantly,
Absolutely.
basically.
And your average, working person in Britain can buy tea and drinks tea all the time. So it apparently is not costly anymore.
Yes, costly just meaning expensive. If something is costly, it just costs a lot of money. You need to pay a lot to get this thing. For example, Sam and Diane decided against having a costly wedding. Maybe they just eloped.
Okay.
They just signed the papers and that's it.
There you go. They didn't want to have an expensive or costly wedding. Apparently they are not nobles. They might have been nobles, but probably not. And if you're a noble, you would definitely be able to afford tea because you're a rich, powerful person who is connected in some kind of way to the royal family. That's what nobles are. We could use it as a noun, or a noble person. We could use it as an adjective too. Now, we're not talking about kings and queens and princes and princesses, but we're talking about the people they hang around with and maybe marry sometime. When we think of nobles, though, we think of dukes and lords, earls, barons, marquises, duchesses, things like that. So people who probably have a great-great-great-great-grandfather who might have been connected to the king or queen back then in some way. They probably have land, maybe live in a big house, and certainly a family history that goes back a long time to powerful people from that country or society. For example, in the Middle Ages, knights were members of the noble class.
That's right.
Common people were not knights. You had to be a noble or in the nobility to be a knight.
And as you said, nobles were higher in society, so they could afford nicer things.
They had money.
If you can afford something, you are just able to buy it. If you can afford to buy a car, you can afford to pay it. That means you have enough money to pay for the car. Anything you can afford is something you have enough money for. For example, most young people cannot afford to buy a house. If you just have your first job out of college, you probably don't have enough money for a house yet.
Yeah, definitely not. Your budget will not go that far.
Yes.
So let's find out more about when normal people in Britain could afford to drink tea. It says it wasn't until the first tea shop opened in 1717 that common people got access to the drink.
Wow, that was only about almost 400 years ago?
Yeah, not long ago though. And I think coffee, as I said, was popular in the 1600s. So tea actually came along later.
That's right. And by the middle of the 18th century, nearly everyone in England was consuming tea. It was affordable now. People could afford it.
Oh, okay, the middle of the 18th. Oh, okay, so not long after. There you go. So people got access to tea, or normal people, common people, got access to tea in the early 1700s. And this noun access, this is basically talking about the ability to get into somewhere or to get something. A door will give you access to a room. Otherwise, you'd have to climb through a window or break through the wall. That's why we like doors. We can talk about your access being your legal right to get something, all right? If you live in a country, your passport will give you access to that country. You can come into the country and go anytime. You don't have to get special papers or get a visa. People in wheelchairs might need special access to get into buildings, right? Ramps or elevators in order to enter places. And here's another one in our example sentence. One of the new government's goals is to increase access to health care, give more health care to more people. Open more hospitals, have more online services, make more people able to get health care when they need it. Sounds like a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah. And after the break, we'll find out what is our fourth and final question in our tea quiz to find out if you are the tea master. Pinky out.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。同学们有答对第一天的课程2个题目吗？那我们接着要进入第3题喽。茶在英国是什么时候变得普及的呢？是15世纪、16世纪、17世纪还是18世纪呢？好，答案是17世纪。好，课文就写到，茶是在17世纪从中国传入英国，但当时的价格非常高，只有贵族负担得起。直到1717年第一家茶店开业，平民老百姓才买得到这种饮料。那我们先来看4个单字 ：costly。 costly 它表示昂贵的、价格高的或是代价大的。那么单字例句写到 Sam 和 Diane 决定不举行昂贵的婚礼。Ken 老师说，搞不好他们是私奔，两个人偷偷跑去结婚。那这时候老师用到 elope 这个字 ，E-L-O-P-E 这个动词表示私奔。下一个单字 noble 当形容词是形容贵族的、高尚的或是崇高的。那么这个字也可以当名词来表达贵族。它的相关单字是 nobility。Nobility 表示贵族阶层。好，麦克老师刚刚有提到不同贵族的爵位，像他提到 Duke 就是公爵，那么 Duchess 就是公爵夫人了，还有 Earl 是伯爵， Baron 是男爵， Marquis 则是侯爵等等。好，那我们再来看下一个单字 afford 它表示负担得起，如果在后面加上 able 这个字尾变成 affordable 就可以表达负担得起的。好，再来看到 access 它表示使用权或是取得权限或是有进入的意思，那这个字后面常常会搭配 to 再加名词。麦克老师刚刚举例说，像坐轮椅的人会需要利用斜坡或是电梯来进入建筑物，老师这时候用到 wheelchair 就是轮椅的意思，那它是拼作 W-H-E-E-L-C-H-A-I-R wheelchair， 还有用到 ramp 这个字 R-A-M-P ramp 表示斜坡坡道。好，那这边还有一个重点， It wasn't until 什么什么 that 什么什么。好，那这样的句型呢是用分列句来强调 not until 什么什么。我们这边就先来复习两个重点，一个是分列句的句型，我们是用 it is 或是 it was 加上强调的部分，加 that 再加句子的其他部分。那么分列句就是把你原本句子要强调的部分摆在 it is 和 that 之间，或是 it was 和 that 之间，然后句子剩下的部分摆到 that 之后。好，那么第二个要复习的重点是 not until 表示直到什么什么才怎么样，后面可以接名词或子句。好，那现在呢，我们就把 not until 加名词或子句来当做你分列句要强调的部分，于是我们句型把它合并，就会得到 it is 或是 it was 加上 not until 名词或子句，加上 that 再加句子的其他部分。好，举例来说， I didn't get his message until this morning。如果我们用分列句来强调 not until this morning， 那句子就会写作 It wasn't until this morning that I got his message。 直到今天早上我才收到他的讯息。好，接回到课文中。
How much do you really know about tea?
4. Why did people start adding milk to tea? A. To improve the flavor. B. To make it cool enough to drink. C. To protect their cups. D. To make it healthier. In the 1700s, many average British folks didn't have the sturdy tea sets that richer people used. Their thinner cups often shattered when boiling liquid was poured inside. Adding milk first helped cool the tea and thus prevented the cups from breaking.
All right, we're back and we're nearing the end of our great quiz about tea. I have never known as much about tea as I do now.
I feel like I learned a lot today,
Yep,
but there's still some things that I don't know.
That's right. It fills me with energy like a good cup of coffee. Anyways, let's get back to our quiz about tea. Question number 4. Why did people start adding milk to tea?
Good question.
These are good questions, and
They
we
are.
haven't gotten many of them right yet.
I
So
know.
let's try this one.
Fourth one's a charm.
Why did people start adding milk to tea? It's one of those questions like, because they did? I mean, did they not do this before? Well, apparently, yeah. So why did they start putting milk in their tea? A, to improve the flavor. B, to make it cool enough to drink. C, to protect their cups. D, to make it healthier. All right, let's see.
This is a hard one.
Improving the flavor, making it cool enough to drink. I think those are both fine. Protecting their cups. What? To make it healthier. Milk's got fat, and I don't know about
Debatable.
that. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm going to go with to improve the flavor.
I think that's why people do it.
Yeah? The
You know.
flavor is really important. Flavor being how something tastes in particular. If something is salty or sweet or sour. These all describe the flavor of something. Ice cream is sweet, and some kimchi might be sour, for example. Okay, here we have the soup that your grandma made is full of flavor. Grandmas make the best soups. They're really rich, they're salty, they're full, they taste really great. That's some good soup.
Absolutely, yeah. If you like a food for any reason or don't like that food, the flavor is probably one of the main reasons why you like something,
Exactly.
right? You don't drink, don't eat ice cream. I like ice cream because it's cold.
I don't think so.
You have it for the flavor. All right, so why did they start putting milk in their tea? You said for the flavor. A lot of people agree tea can be bitter.
It can.
Right? The milk, the sugar makes it sweeter. People like that. Let's see the answer. In the 1700s, many average British folks didn't have the sturdy tea sets that richer people used. Their thinner cups often shattered when boiling liquid was poured inside.
We got none of them right.
It was because of their cups would shatter. They would break their cups when the hot tea was poured in, burning you and making a big mess and really ruining that cup of tea.
That can ruin your tea really quickly, right?
You don't want to have tea with broken stuff inside.
So adding milk first helped cool the tea and thus prevent the cups from breaking. Who knew?
Wow.
That's not what I would have guessed.
That is a weird reason why didn't they just add some colder water?
I think you solved their problem for them. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
So the tea would not be as tasty. I don't know. That is really, really interesting. So while we think about that and thank our lucky stars that we have tough cups for our tea, let's take a break.
好，第4题，人们为什么开始在茶里面加牛奶呢？ A. 为了提升风味 B. 为了让茶凉到可以入口 C. 为了保护自己的杯子 D. 为了让它更有益健康。好，现在看一个单字是 flavor。Flavor 就表示口味、味道或是风味。那同学们有没有觉得刚刚讲这4个答案啊，听起来好像都有可能诶 Kim 老师刚刚用到 debatable 这个形容词，是形容说是可以争论的或是有争议的。这个字是拼作 D-E-B-A-T-A-B-L-E，debatable。好，那其实我们可以用 It's a matter of debate。It's a matter of debate， 字面意思是它是可以辩论的问题，那就是用来表达见仁见智的语义。好，那我们现在要来揭晓答案咯。在18世纪的英国，许多普通人并不像有钱人一样拥有那种耐用的茶具。那么当沸腾的液体倒入杯子的时候呢，比较薄的杯子常常就会碎裂，所以他们会在一开始就先加牛奶，帮忙冷却茶，防止杯子破掉。好，补充单字 sturdy 就是表达经久耐用的、坚固的。还有 shatter 它表示粉碎、破碎或者是使什么毁灭的那种意思。好，那我们接着回到课文中。
How much do you really know about tea?
While tea lovers will argue endlessly about how to make a great cup, there's only one rule. The perfect cup of tea is the one that tastes best to you. No matter how you like it, just enjoy.
Well, now that we know everything there is to know about tea,
Everything.
let's finish up our article. While tea lovers will argue endlessly about how to make a great cup, there's only one rule. The perfect cup of tea is the one that tastes best to you. No matter how you like it, just enjoy.
There you go. I
Good
like
advice.
that. Absolutely. Yeah. Some people like sweet tea with lemon and sugar.
Yep.
Some people like their tea nice and plain. Or then there's that fancy stuff you can get here with cream and
Pudding and
bubbles and all sorts of cool
so
stuff.
many things.
There you go. But enjoy a good cup of tea. I think in general, tea is also quite good for you.
It is good for you.
Right?
I think black and green tea are very good for your heart, right?
Okay, there you go.
So it's
There's
got health benefits too.
Good stuff in that tea.
Now, we learned a lot today, but what do you think, Mike? What were you surprised to learn about tea?
Everything, I
Yeah,
would say.
we got none of those answers correct.
We didn't do well because they were good questions and they were filled with surprising facts.
Yeah.
But to me, it was surprising that English teacups were so bad that they had to add milk. They had to add milk to cool them down, and that only the rich people could afford tea at the very beginning.
I can't imagine you go to make yourself a nice cup of tea after a long day and it just explodes.
There you go. And tea is such a common, popular drink in the UK. To think that there was a time when only the rich could afford it, that is also pretty surprising. So there you go. Lots to think about when you're having your next cup of tea. But please come back and join us for another great article very soon. Until then, be well, take care of each other, and ta-ta.
Bye-bye.
爱喝茶的人通常自己会有习惯的泡茶方式，那么大家对于该如何沏一杯好茶都有不同的意见。可是说到底，你自己觉得最好喝的茶就是完美的茶。无论你喜欢怎么调制，你只要好好享用就可以了。我们最后来看两个重点。第一个是用 WH 疑问词加不定词来形成名词片语的用法。好 ，WH 疑问词像是 what、when、where、who、which、why、how 等等，加上不定词 to v 会构成名词片语。那这时候它的意思就会跟名词子句，也就是 WH 疑问词加主词加助动词加动词这样的结构，意思相同。好，那么无论是这个名词片语或是名词子句呢，都可以当主词、受词或是主词补语用。举例来说 I don't know how to get to the train station 也可以说 I don't know how I could get to the train station 我不知道怎么到地铁站诶。好，那第二个重点是 no matter 之后接 WH 疑问词来引导让步副词子句，是表达无论怎么样都什么什么，不管怎么样还是怎么样。好，那么 no matter 加上 WH 疑问词呢，我们也可以用另外一个方式来代换，就是在 WH 疑问词的后面字尾加上 EVER。好，举例来说 no matter what 就相当于 whatever 表示无论什么， no matter where 相当于 wherever 表示无论在哪， no matter when 相当于 whenever 就表示无论何时等等。好，例如 no matter how difficult the challenge is, we must face it。也可以说 however difficult the challenge is, we must face it。无论那个挑战有多么困难，我们都必须面对。好，那么以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
How much do you really know about tea?
3. When did tea become widely popular in Britain? A. In the 15th century. B. In the 16th century. C. In the 17th century. D. In the 18th century. Tea came to England from China in the 17th century, but it was so costly that only noble people could afford it. It wasn't until the first tea shop opened in 1717 that common people got access to the drink. By the middle of the 18th century, nearly everyone in England was consuming tea. 4. Why did people start adding milk to tea? A. To improve the flavor. B. To make it cool enough to drink. C. To protect their cups. D. To make it healthier. In the 1700s, many average British folks didn't have the sturdy tea sets that richer people used. Their thinner cups often shattered when boiling liquid was poured inside. Adding milk first helped cool the tea and thus prevented the cups from breaking. While tea lovers will argue endlessly about how to make a great cup, there's only one rule. The perfect cup of tea is the one that tastes best to you. No matter how you like it, just enjoy.
The Danshui River separates two coastal towns, with Bali on its west bank and Danshui on its east. One of the memorable ways to travel from Danshui to Bali is to take the ferry. Tickets can be purchased on either side, or you can swipe your Easy card for even more convenience. Once on the ferry, you can take in a beautiful sunset or the bright lights of both coastlines. As you approach the Bali wharf, the sights, sounds, and smells of Bali fill your senses. In Bali, there are numerous activities to take part in. Street food, street musicians, and the lively old street are all just steps from the wharf. You can explore the roads and alleys of Bali to discover its secrets. You can also rent a bike and take a ride down the wooden path to check out the wetlands and mangroves.
See you next time.